All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Erica Oriens, and I'm the Vice President and Executive Director of the Michigan Center for Student Success at the Michigan Community College Association. We are here today for our third intersession of the Michigan Community College Leadership Academy, and we have our Leadership Academy Fellows on the line. We have several presidents on the line, and then other guests here as well today. And then I know some of you probably have, like me, a second snow day with some other helpers at your house too. So mine were just outside sledding on the ice. So I'm looking forward to visiting the emergency room later tonight. So we'll see how that goes for them. But thanks for joining us today. These intersessions with the Leadership Academy were intended to really support the Leadership Academy participants and then give you all an opportunity, especially presidents and other leaders on campus, to connect with your Leadership Academy fellows. We scheduled these strategically on right after lunch. And so hopefully you would be able to connect, of course, while you're all on campus. Again, good timing on our part that coincided with many of our colleges being closed yesterday and today. So I'm really grateful that you're all still able to join, despite probably many of you doing that from your home or in your own offices. I would like to introduce you all to Kimberly Lowry, who I met several months ago as in her new role as the director of the College Excellence Program at the Aspen Institute. Kimberly will be bringing a presentation to us today in conversation around the Aspen Institute's leadership approach. As some of you may know, the MCCA recently was selected to participate in a national replication of the Ohio Leadership Academy, and it is based on the curriculum of the Aspen Institute. So I think it's just a really special opportunity to bring Kimberly here to this meeting, talk with you all about this work, and give you the opportunity to ask those questions as well. So with that, I will turn it over to Kimberly to go ahead and get started.
Thank you so much, Erica. And thank you all for joining. When I heard about the snow day, I know we get excited, but then the reality of whether it's extra friends at home or potential ice storms outside. So I appreciate you all joining today and look forward to the conversation we can have. I also want to give a special shout out to Dr. Robinson. Thank you, sir, alum of our program. Appreciate you joining today. And I just want to mention that because that is a huge resource for all of you all on this call, even beyond myself. And if there's any other fellows on the call, thank you. But really, we appreciate our fellows and our alumni of our program, the impact and the transformation we're really trying to hope that we can bring about towards higher education. So as Erica mentioned, my name is Dr. Kimberly Lowry. I serve as the Director of Community College Leadership Initiatives with the College Excellence Program. In this role, I get to provide leadership and support for our Rising Presidents Fellowship, our New Presidents Fellowship. I get to actively involved in our Aspen Prize cycle, which is going on now. We are soon to be announcing our next Aspen Prize winner. And then we are home to a host of different research initiatives. So you may be familiar with some of our playbooks, some of our grant reports that we've written. So super excited to be here sharing space with you all today. I will also let you know, prior to this role, I spent over 2 decades in higher education, most recently as the Vice President of Instruction and Student Services at Lone Star College Houston North, which was part of the Lone Star system in Houston, Texas. So this work is near and dear to my heart. I'm also a proud community college graduate that I tell everybody every chance that I get. Because really starting at the community college and graduating from the community college served as such a staple in my life. So again, welcome, thank you, and I look forward to the conversation. My hope is that I'm going to share a little bit of information with you about the Aspen Institute and specifically the College Excellence Program. You'll see that a lot of our work is rooted in what excellent colleges do, and then more importantly, what excellent leaders do. Selfishly, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the fellowship because I would hope that based on this work and our work that we do, you may be interested or know someone who's interested. And then last but not least, I will make sure that we share some time for some questions. So the College Excellence Program. We are a program affiliated with the Aspen Institute, and we work to support colleges and universities in their quest to achieve higher standards of excellence. We do this through a number of ways. One of those I mentioned is our Aspen Prize. So every 2 years, we, through student success outcomes, identify the top 150 colleges that are moving the needle across various metrics. And through that process, we identify through different rounds a list of 10 semifinalists and finalists that we then do deeper dives. We do site visits, we do interviews. This could feel like an accreditation visit where we get all in their mix, right? All in their business, because we really want to study and learn what they're doing to achieve these outcomes. The results of that, in addition to being the Aspen Prize winner, is it creates a body of knowledge that we hope that we translate into replicated tools that then practitioners can use. And we do that through a number of ways. Again, you may be familiar with our playbooks, like the transfer playbook, the dual enrollment playbook, our workforce playbook. We're also working on different research. We're wrapping up a study related to rural colleges that we hope to produce a report in the coming months. We have a recent report on STEM education in community colleges. So all of our work is really rooted in best practices and research. And then we translate that into professional development opportunities and curriculum. Similar to what Erica talked about, is we have some offerings within certain states and districts where we bring information to presidents and their boards and their senior teams, all rooted in, again, what excellent colleges do and then what excellent leaders do. In addition, we do offer a number of different fellowships, one being the Rising Presidents Fellowship, and this is specifically for senior level executives that aspire to the presidency. And our hope is that we provide them with tools and resources so that as they aspire to that role, they are equipped to transform. And then again, we do this as well for those that are sitting presidents as they think about their institutions and whatever support and resources they need to think about the transformation that needs to happen, not only on their campus, but in their region, right, in their service area, and how being a community college is really rooted in the community that we serve. So we spend a lot of time taking our learnings and translating that. I do not do this work alone, so I would be remiss not to mention the 32 other staff members that all work for the College Excellence Program, from our executive director, Josh Weiner, all the way to our associates who help coordinate events and help with logistics and operations. We are a mission-driven organization, so everybody understands the value of education, and we work to make sure that, again, we understand what excellent colleges are due, and we provide that information to practitioners such as yourselves. So what we found, and you'll hear me continue to say this, is that what colleges do matter, right? And we see that based on the research that we've done in the field. We hope to show that there is an opportunity to significantly improve student learning, completion, and employment after college for students, especially for those that have been historically underserved. Again, we know this to be true based on the research we've done in the field and based on what we've seen colleges be able to do, even despite something like a national pandemic. We recently really situated this conversation around recognizing the mission of community colleges and the evolution that we are in right now, right? So early on, community colleges was all about access. Open enrollment, it was all about providing access to college for those who did not have access. So we reference this as kind of college 1.0. That was the original kind of intention and the mission. And then if you think about over the past maybe 2 decades, that has shifted, and we've seen states adopt things like performance-based funding, completion agendas, right? So then there's been this increased need to not just get students at college and in the door, but making sure they're completing a credential, right? We recognize that the community college is not the destination. A college is not the destination. It's a vehicle through which we hope students are pursuing and achieving their goals, but most importantly, completing them. We're now at a time where even completing, though, is no longer enough. And I know as you think about the communities that you serve, you are probably seeing students who have credentials and are still not able to get a job, right? Or they're got a credential in a program, a pathway that still does not lead to a livable wage. So for us at the Aspen Institute, and specifically the College Excellence Program, we hope to highlight colleges that have figured out the importance of post-college success so that we can share that information with the field to make that the priority. It does not erase or minimize the importance of access and completion, but for our fellows, this push towards a college 3.0, realizing access, completion, and post-college success, what's happening after they graduate and leave our colleges, is really important, right? So again, this is as we think about the programs we're offering, the services we're providing, the partnerships we're building outside of our institution. Are we setting up our students to be successful after they graduate? And I'll talk a little bit more about our framework and how that translates into student outcomes, but asking ourselves, do we know what is happening after they graduate? Do we know if they are transferring? If they are transferring, are they being successful once they transfer? If they are getting jobs, are those jobs leading to a livable wage that we're changing the state of financial freedom in a community that we serve, right? So those are the types of questions and the type of frameworks that we grapple with all the time with our fellows, knowing that context matters, state and legislation matters. We really hope and support our fellows to process how to bring college, community college 3.0 into a reality at their institution and in their community. So we'll talk a little bit about our framework for student success, and we define college excellence as student success across these domains. So you'll notice that student success is right in the middle. The beauty about all this, again, as a practitioner, is this is the stuff that we are doing every single day. What this framework does, though, is gives us an opportunity to articulate and hone in on the different aspects that equate to student success. So when we think about equity, equity is in every single lever, every single pillar of our framework. But when you think about access, who's coming to our college, and most importantly, who's not, right? Who are we leaving on the sideline? And have we really asked ourselves if we're serving students and creating access to students in the ways that we really need to? What's happening once they're at our college? The teaching and learning aspect, right? What's happening in the classroom? Are they being retained? Are they successfully completing their courses? Is this pedagogy and instructional strategies conducive to the environment that we want to create for them? Are they completing these credentials? So many of our students start and stop and swirl and life happens. What are we doing to make sure that they complete that credential that they've intended to complete? Again, whether that's support services, whether that's specific programs, are we designing these for students, knowing that the outcome is them completing this credential to, again, hopefully transfer to a four-year institution to obtain a bachelor's degree, or to enter the world of work and, again, obtain a job with a livable wage? And then again, are they transferring? You know, so many times we talk about the research that talks about the intention of our students entering our campuses. I'm always blown away by the percentage of students who say, I want to transfer, I want to pursue a bachelor's degree at the point of application. And then we compare that to how many actually complete or how many transfer, right? So if our data tells us that their intention is to transfer and our intention is to obtain a bachelor's degree, what have we done to try to make that a reality for them? And then workforce, again, no longer is it good enough just for a student to complete a credential, but are they completing the credential and entering the workforce in roles, in programs, in positions that allow them to be in a livable wage? Again, being a product of a community college and working in community colleges so long, we know how many of our students are living in poverty. Our hope is that through education that can change. But for that to change, we have to offer the programs and put them in situations so they can obtain employment with wages that are higher than what they are currently achieving now. So the way that we talk about this in terms of student outcomes is access to opportunity. So again, this is our access and equity lens as we think about our student success framework. Our students having access to programs, and when you think about even some of the programs you offer on your campus, have you disaggregated data to see what types of students are enrolling in what programs, and is that equitable? If not, are there things we could be doing about that? We think about success in college. Again, what's happening as students are learning and completing? Are we seeing equity even in those that are completing what types of programs and have access to certain types of experiences? And then most importantly, success after graduating. Again, are they getting the jobs that are leading to high livable wages? Are they able to transfer and attain a bachelor's degree? And is there equity in those outcomes, specifically for students of color and students that may be coming from low income backgrounds? I'm going to talk a little bit about Aspen's theory of change, because this is our leadership theory of change. And you'll hear me say, regardless of your current position and title, we are all leaders. We all have a part to play in a student's journey and trajectory. So while this is more of a leadership theory of change, and I'll talk in a minute about what we hope our presidents consider, I believe you can lead from any position, and that there are aspects of this theory of change and some of the frameworks that we provide our fellows that could be applied regardless of position and department on campus. But in regards to our theory of change, we know that the community college has some specific missions, right? For us right now, where we focus on is the economic mobility of students in the community and talent development for regional economy and democracy. Those are the missions of the community college. If that is true, we have to then think about the student outcomes that are aligned to that mission. So this goes back to, again, where our research has showed us that success in college, success after graduating, and equitable access and outcomes matter, right? That these are the ways that our mission should be showing up in the student outcomes that we're achieving. And then what we hope is that there are reforms and leadership initiatives that are delivering on these mission-aligned outcomes. So this is really where we will see institutions create scaled and systematic reforms, right? This may look like redesigning an advising office, not an office in a physical perspective, but how we advise. Developmental education reform, human capital, right? What are these scaled and systematic reforms that allow this mission to come to fruition? We believe that reforms have to be owned by presidents in partnerships with their boards and their senior teams. But because these reforms are so mission critical, it's important that the president really owns the vision, the priorities, set the tone for how these reforms can really be aligned to the mission. And then recognizing that the reforms need to include both internal and external partnerships. You all know we don't do this work alone. So the way to be able to do this work is as we think strategically about both our internal and external partners. So again, leadership matters, right? We know that it is through leaders that colleges can thrive. Leaders are our levers. So while that is not the only position on a college campus, because this takes boldness, positionality, and a vision, we hope that, and we see that the colleges that are able to produce positive student success outcomes despite a pandemic, despite maybe a failing economy, are those that have leaders that are focused and dedicated to this level of transformation. And it is through programs and resources that we hope to support and help prepare this cadre of leaders to do this work, because we know that it isn't easy. We know that it's not quick wins. So our hope is, again, through our research, that we help provide them the tools to be able to bring about this type of change. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a president's model. I think this allows some context. Again, we have a few presidents with us who I'm sure could follow up and help us translate this into action. But for those of you that are not presidents, I think it gives an insight as to the lens of a president and how and why they may be operating the way that they are. So we know that on the far left, presidents have a vision for excellence and equity. And this is where we see things like scaled and system student success strategies, again, focusing on that framework around access, equity, teaching, and completion. Presidents also focus on strong institutional capacities, right? So the role of their senior team, how they work with their board, how an institution uses data. And presidents always think about that partnership and make sure that it's aligned to student success strategies. So again, whether that's a partnership with employers, community-based organizations, K through 12 partners, universities. Those are really the basis of this long-term vision for excellence and equity. That then informs on the far right, this reform agenda, right? These short-term priorities that I'm sure all of you are actively involved in day out. So this is where you start to see priorities. This is where you start to see how a president may communicate with their senior board, why a strategic plan may be going a certain direction, why there's a certain message your president wants to make sure is conveyed during, say, a convocation or during a certain point, because again, that reform agenda helps influence and drive that overall vision. And then as a president, what the box in the middle is it's the continuous analysis of needs and opportunities, not just internal to the college, but external. So the president does this all the time, having to constantly think and assess how we're doing right now in relation to then our short-term priorities or our reform agenda, but never losing sight of this long-term vision, right? All of this is a way that a president tries to set and enact a vision for student success reform, or again, excellence and equity when we talk about the lives of our students. I probably said that very easily versus how it probably really translates in practice, Dr. Robinson. So I may tap on you during questions in case someone has some specific examples, because I don't want to minimize how layered and complicated this process is, right? Our presidents do a great job of balancing it all, but it is a continuous process related to currently assessing, again, not just what's happening in the campus or on the campus, but externally, regionally, all that context matters as they set a vision and set priorities. And again, remember, we lead from all positions. So regardless of if you are currently a president, an AVP, an advisor, an associate, or the assistant registrar, everything we do contributes to the student experience and the student journey. And I think as we think about that and we think about the responsibility we have, all of you are, the fact that you're in the Leadership Academy tells me that you are leaders in your own right. And I challenge you to think about, with where we hope to go, Community College 3.0, what part can you play, right? In making sure that that becomes a reality for the students you serve. So now, selfishly, I am going to talk about the Rising Presidents Fellowship. So I talked about the fact that, you know, what the Aspen Institute and the College Excellence Program does specifically is focus all of our learnings based on research, student success outcomes, and data. And then we package that and prepare it for, again, a number of different audiences, but one of those is our Rising Presidents Fellowship. This is a picture of our current cohort where we have over 30 fellows that are currently involved. They are getting ready for their second residential session. And we take them through a 9-month program where we talk about our framework. We give them scenarios. We partner them with a mentor who's either a current sitting president or a former president or chancellor, and we grapple with this. You know, some institutions may not be ready or have the infrastructure to implement some of these 3.0 ideals. What do we do about that? How do we start to lay the groundwork? Even if my college is a 1.0, maybe the next milestone is a 2.0. How do I do that? If I'm at a 2.0, maybe it is to a 3.0. How do I do that? Right? So we always are excited about spending time with our fellows to bring current research, but to help them grapple with the transformational change that they're committed to bringing at their campuses. Just a little bit about the Rising Presidents Fellowship that I wanted to share. To date, we have 276 fellows. Every year we see the applications increasing. 81 of our fellows are now presidents. And 40% are people of color and 65% are women. One of the things we also realized in wanting to make sure we made information accessible to practitioners was that there was a huge opportunity as we start to see transitions in executive level positions and an opportunity to help diversify the pipeline, right? So we started to see more and more executives of color, more and more women, more and more even presidents from rural colleges or leaders from institutional types that aren't your large multi-system, multi-college district, just needing access to the tools and resources. And our hope is through the Rising Presidents Fellowship, we're able to do just some of that. Program overview, we focus on these 3 pillars. Again, leading for student success. So we spend time defining and assessing student success and equity. Then we really focus on leading for internal change. So what's happening at the institution? Again, human capital, strategic finance, that really needs to be assessed in order to bring about that change. And then partnering for collective action. Again, who are the constituents? Who are your partners that you have to build coalitions with in order to make this work a reality? I have a short video that I'm hoping I can play from one of our fellows.
The Rising Presidents Fellowship is unique in that its underlying assumptions and its approach is different. The fellowship was so instrumental in helping me to rethink the meaning of post-completion success, whether or not that student actually was successful within the transfer institution. What type of job did their completion lead to after graduating from their 4-year institution? And the same for the student that was going to work. Did it lead to a job that was going to garner them a livable wage? Were we moving students from poverty to poverty? Or were we really creating pathways to economic mobility? So it stretched me and challenged me in ways that now I consider to be fundamental to my presidency.
So hopefully, as you can see, this fellowship really is monumental for a lot of our fellows. Again, we have no doubts that leaders like Dr. Robinson will continue and will do great things. Our hope is that the fellowship and the Institute, we are able to provide tools and resources and access to a network that allows the support to be there as we really think about what's at stake and the work that's trying to be done. So again, what the fellowship is, it's an opportunity to learn. It's grounded in curriculum. It is not kind of just that conference you go to and leave. It's intensive. What it is not is a guarantee for a presidency, right? We're not in the search firm business. We don't do placement. We just hope that for those that are aspiring to the presidency and that are looking at ways to make impact and bring about transformation, we give them access to information, tools in the network to build momentum in that space. It's not a checklist. We don't have the secret sauce about what to do on your first 30 days once you are named a president. But again, our hope is that through our research and through our network, that again, you are provided with what we would tell our students wraparound services, right? So again, tools, resources, access, and network to help you do the work. We believe our Aspen Fellows have a deep commitment to achieving high and equitable levels of student success. They're willing to take risk. They have the ability to create lasting change, and they're committed to continuous growth. Again, ideally, these are individuals who are interested in moving into a presidency within the next 3 to 5 years. I will say, as an alum of the program, I don't want anyone to think that the only marker of success is the position of a president, right? Because we recognize that higher education is an ecosystem. So a number of our fellows have gone on to do other positions outside of the presidency, but are still making a huge impact within higher education and to the ecosystem. But our hope is that, and we know the need for transformational leaders in the seat of the presidency. So we do hope and encourage our fellows to consider that position as you think about being a lever for change. With that, I'm going to stop sharing so I can see your faces and see if there are any questions.
Folks can go ahead and unmute if they have questions, or you can add them to the chat too. I'll give it a minute and then I have a question. All right, I'll ask my question and then other folks can jump in. Kimberly, one of my favorite book titles is What Excellent Community Colleges Do. I think that's just a great way to frame the work that you do with the Aspen Prize. Can you talk for a little bit about, yeah, Steve just went and grabbed his book. Good. What do excellent community colleges do? And I think I'd especially love to hear this from your perspective. I know you probably can't reveal too much about this year's finalists, but can you give our audience some thoughts about, what you see as excellence in community colleges and higher ed?
Oh, yeah. And I love that question. Thank you. So I will tell you, I got the opportunity to go on a few prize visits this year. And this is where we visit those top 10 colleges. The first thing I will say is so many colleges are doing such great work, right? So while it is nice to be part of the prize, I never want colleges to think that if they don't make it to the 150, if they don't make it to the 40, if they don't make it to the 10, that they're still not doing good work, because they are. But I love your question, Erica, because one of the things, and I can give a practical example of a college I had an opportunity to visit, was around the work that this college was doing with like dual credit and traditional high school matriculation. So most colleges have a feeder from a local high school, right? Most colleges have a general dual enrollment program where they may offer anywhere from 3 to 12 to 15 hours that they hope students take advantage of, right? It's there, it's being offered, but they hope. What I saw this excellent college do was enroll 60% of their local high school at their college. What I saw this excellent college do was convert 80% of the students who had participated in dual enrollment into their freshman class. And they did that in a number of ways. The relationship they had with the high school, the commitment, not just to students that expressed interest, but to the county was phenomenal, right? So they created a pathway where every graduating senior applied to this particular college. And they did that by, one, partnering with the local school districts, but their graduating seniors had a year-long process with the college. In the fall, every graduating senior applied. And then in the spring, every graduating senior had an education plan already created. So when we asked that college, well, how do students know about you? Their response was there was no way that students would not know about them, because they made it a point to be in every single high school on a regular basis. And they had advisors or outreach specialists in those high schools on a regular basis, but they found a way to incorporate it to where the students all knew about them, right? So to me, that's a great practical example of, it's not that dual enrollment is new. It's not that having a counselor at a high school is new. But what this excellent college did was take it beyond that and made sure that the partnership was reciprocated, that they were able to embed themselves in the student experience. And the reason why that was so instrumental and I think influential was what they saw in their data. And this is something else we encourage our fellows to do. And I know, again, Dr. Robinson will attest to his data workbook and capstone process that, we tell fellows all the time, it's not a copy and paste. What worked at Valencia may not work at Lansing, right? But the process by which a president will assess their data, ask good questions, think about their context, their region, their needs of their campus, and then determine which strategy they need to be able to overcome that is what is powerful and what's important, right? So what we've noticed with, again, excellent leaders and excellent, they know their data. They know their needs of their student. They know their needs of their region, and they've created opportunities. They've recreated a reform agenda that meets a bigger goal. If any of you have heard someone like Dr. Mike Flores speak from Alamo, his big goal is to eradicate poverty in San Antonio. He doesn't talk about enrollment. Enrollment is important. That may be a strategy, right? Because eventually in students enrolling, completing a credential leads to a livable wage. But if you talk to Dr. Flores and you hear him speak, his long-term vision, his big bet is to eradicate poverty in San Antonio. And I think those are the types of things we see in excellent colleges and excellent leaders. It's having those big, bold ideas, that vision rooted in data, rooted in the context of that region to really impact that community and change lives for generations, that then translates into strategies that can be operationalized on campus.
Thank you. Other questions from folks?
I have one. Can you share just a little bit more about the application process, as well as give a sense of sort of like the volume of applications you receive and how competitive it is?
Yeah, great question. So we typically see between 120 to 150 applications every cycle. From that, like if any of you are in enrollment management, we have a funnel, right? So we hope that everyone applies, because we really hope to get a diverse pool, you know, with any cohort. It isn't just a specific profile per se we're looking for, because context and everything matters so much, right? But we typically see anywhere from, again, 100, 120 to 150 applications. From there, the next step is a number would be selected for an interview, right? So if we went from 150, we may go to between 60 and 70 interviews. And from there, our goal is to select up to 40 fellows in each cohort. That number is there for a couple of reasons. One, again, thinking about any type of cohort group instruction, right? It's a sizable group that we can manage. Our availability of mentors, our availability of funding. So we try to get to no more than 40. Sometimes it may be a little smaller than that. It just depends on some of those other factors. But we typically start anywhere from about 120 to 150 applications, and then kind of take it down to, again, no more than 40 fellows. I will tell you again, as an alum, being very transparent, I applied one year, did not get selected, put my name back in that hat again, and got selected the second time. And I used that opportunity when I wasn't selected to think about my readiness, my institution's readiness, right? My scope, as I thought about the type of leader I wanted to be, because again, the fellowship is not kind of the check just to become a president. It's really going to challenge how you think, how you operate, what you look for. And in a lot of ways, I think it influences the types of institutions you want to lead, right? And the impact that you can make. But that's kind of the process. I will tell you, COVID shifted our cycle a little bit. So we are actually in the process now of interviewing for cohort 8. Which will start and kick off in July of this year. But then we will quickly start to recruit and have an application for cohort 9, probably in October. It'll probably be open through December, and then we'll kind of run the same cycle. So traditionally, the cohort always started in July, and then COVID shifted some of that. But I would say by fall, our next cohort cycle will be open.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Just kind of in general, since, you know, obviously post-pandemic or living in the current state of things after the height of the pandemic has kind of closed up. What are some common characteristics that you've seen from institutions that have really taken that opportunity to make some really impactful changes and kind of take the opportunity to reassess and then have bounced back in really positive ways?
Yeah, what a great question, Evan. So I think what we've seen are those colleges that were able to, you know, there's a saying, you know, you never waste a crisis, right? So I think for some of the colleges, we saw that the pandemic allowed them to create some momentum in ways that they wouldn't have been able to otherwise. And I'll give a great example. When I was still on a campus, it was during the pandemic, and there were disciplines we could never get to even entertain an online option in, right? Even though the demand was there, the students wanted it, other colleges were doing it. We could just not budge, both on the student services side or the instruction side, because it just wasn't the way we did business. And what the pandemic did was allow us and force us in a lot of ways to think differently about how we delivered instruction and how we delivered services. And when I think and reflect on whether it's, again, thinking about the current price cycle or some of our research, we saw that the colleges that were able to take advantage of the crisis or stay true and double down on those big bets and that vision to introduce reform strategies for the sake of students and outcomes are really the ones that were able to make it out of the pandemic and not have some of the same challenges and barriers that others have had. I remember interviewing Dr. Gregory Hale from Broward a few months ago, and when he assumed his presidency, I guess right before the pandemic, he wanted to incorporate a reform called Broward Up, where he created some community-based locations in areas that didn't exist. And I remember asking him, how did you keep that as a priority and COVID happened, right? Because it would seem like it would be very easy to put that on pause because now you have this national pandemic happening. And he talked about how it was so important that nothing was going to change it and stop it. If anything, it made it more important because the areas and communities that didn't have access to higher education needed it now more than ever. So he was able to use the pandemic as a means to build momentum to the big long-term vision he already had. He knew his data. He knew what was missing in the communities he served, and it was access. So he used the opportunity to talk about how important now more than ever that access was if this community would ever have a chance. And I think he saw his constituents believe that. And now that has blown up in Broward County in ways that I don't even think he had originally anticipated or imagined.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
Hi, Kimberly. I have a question. I'm really curious about this post-college success piece, and especially, working at community colleges that sometimes we might offer a program that is very popular with students that doesn't necessarily lead to the level of income, right, that is going to move students out of poverty. So I see leaders having to balance this enrollment and then, post-completion goals. And I'm wondering, what you've seen there with people being able to make those decisions and kind of grapple with that tension.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Annie. That is something we talk about a lot. And I think it's a hard conversation, right? Again, thinking about some of the programs that we know may not lead to the potential that other programs have. So a lot of times in the fellowship, we talk about programs like cosmetology, right? That's a program that a lot of people will say may not into or may not lead to a livable wage, but it's a very popular program in both the high schools. And again, I'm here in Texas, both high schools, it's a top program. We have whole divisions and buildings dedicated to cosmetology in some of the systems out here. And I think that's where we have to think about the vitality of the program. One aspect of the conversation is that student pursuing cosmetology may also consider being a business owner. So does that start to change the trajectory and possible wage opportunity? I don't have a quick answer. And again, I know there may be a few presidents on the call, so I would welcome the opportunity for them to interject and chime in, but it is something we're talking about. And I think what we're wrestling with now is not that those programs are any less important, but making sure that students can make informed decisions, right? So how do we let students know about the wage potential at the onset? A lot of times you'll hear, students will say, well, I didn't know that this program didn't lead to this type of job, or I assumed that this credential would allow me to get this type of job, right? So I think it allows us to question ourselves to say, if we're going to keep those programs, how do we make sure that students are informed about the job outlook of those programs? And if they still choose to pursue, at least they go in knowing and could possibly supplement in other ways. Another one we talk about and grapple with all the time is early childhood development, right? As a mother to two young boys, it's important. And I give teachers and early childhood development instructors all the praise and glory, especially coming out of the pandemic. But it is a program oftentimes that is questioned from a occupation or job outlook perspective. When you think about what they may be, what their earning potential is, right? So we don't have all the answers yet, other than saying that it's important for us to make sure we communicate with students what job outlooks are, what earning potentials are, and help them make informed decisions about the programs that they pursue. I will tell you, Annie, I could remember just being grateful that a student selected a program, right? Like the fact that you selected one and we can put you on a pathway, that's a success. But as a practitioner, and this is after coming through the fellowship, what I understood was that's not good enough anymore. It's not good enough to allow a student. We were seeing, again, at a previous institution, we were seeing like 50% of our students graduate with an Associates of Arts, but maybe only 20% of them were transferring. So then I started to ask myself, well, if they're not transferring, what types of jobs are they getting? Are they even clear about the pathway or what would be next? And if we didn't have those conversations with them, they may have a plan, but we didn't know. So it became not good enough anymore for us not to know, right? So I share that to say, I think this is where hopefully at your institutions, you start to dig a little bit deeper, right? You start to make sure that if we are pursuing or have credentials and programs that right now, based on our data and research, aren't maybe leading to sustainable wages, what are we doing about that? How are we communicating that? And are there ways we can supplement that for students? Because we oftentimes see the long term versus they may just be seeing right now.
Thank you.
Do any of our presidents on the line want to add to that? Thoughts to that? I know you struggle with that a lot.
Erica and Kimberly, I might just chime in. First of all, I just want to say, even the amazing presidents here in Michigan who aren't part of the Aspen network do all this incredible work. This is a really rich state of incredible leaders. But the one thing I'd say about post-college success, two quick things. First, Annie, it's probably the most difficult standard for us to hold ourselves to. You know, we're having to push outcomes that are beyond our reach. So it's hard to do and it's hard to measure. But I also think that it is there are several of these, but it's one of the things that Aspen has done to put out into the conversation that is the standard that we need to achieve. It can be a really focusing touchstone on these difficult programs that Kimberly talked about, where there's high popularity, maybe even high demand, but not social mobility for our students. So it's one of these great frameworks that helps us focus. That's my viewpoint. Mm-hmm. We have so many experts here. I'd love to hear what my colleagues think too.
No, I agree with you, Steve. I think, you know, that is elusive data for us to get. And as much as we try to connect with our employers and do post-grad surveys, as we know in Michigan in particular, it's a struggle to get our hands on that data. But, you know, I think Kimberly, you know, made a very important point for our students is to really share this information up front as best we can with the data we do have, because you do want students to make informed choices, and, you know, you want students to enjoy what they do, right? We talk about loving what you do for the rest of your life, and they may have difficult decisions to make, but gosh, if your area of passion is going to turn into a $12 an hour job, you want to make sure they know that going in, because it's, you know, it's incumbent upon us to help them make those choices, right? We're the experts, and they're supposed to be able to rely on us to help them make good judgments to help set themselves up for success in the future.
Thank you both. Other questions? I'll ask one more question. Kimberly, one of the things that you mentioned in your talk earlier about the campus visits that you do to all the Aspen Prize finalists and one of the things that we talked about at the President's Committee meeting last weekend and just has been on my mind since then is people visiting campuses. We'll be at Lansing Community College West Campus when the Leadership Academy gets back together in May, and they have an amazing facility, and we'll be touring that facility. I have the luxury of visiting a lot of campuses, and I take tons of pictures, and I know Brandy does as well, to see what's happening. I wonder if you could speak, and I'm really just hoping that a lot of the fellows that are in the Leadership Academy are thinking about getting off campus and, you know, visiting their peers across the state. I'm wondering if you have any advice about what have been your best experiences and kind of how to do those kinds of visits to get the most out of it.
Yeah, I love that question, Erica. And what a huge opportunity, right? I think that is the power of this type of academy and network. You know, I've been fortunate enough to have colleagues, I think, at different colleges in the same state where I may just say, hey, I'm coming by and I want to see it, right? I want to take the pictures. I've had others where if I've taken a group with me, I'm thinking about when I was in Dallas, we would visit Alamo colleges as we were redesigning advising, and we took directors from 7 other colleges and just did a road trip, right? We stayed overnight, and Alamo at the time was so gracious to kind of create almost like a visit program, right? Where they brought in people to talk to us. We were able to do a tour. So I think you can go about it in different ways, but it is so beneficial to see it, to be able to ask those types of questions. And I saw in the chat, like the context matters, the size matters. You know, you may have another institution 30 miles away from you, but that community and those students could be very, very different. The programs you offer may be different, the facilities. So I do think that there is value in that. And I think I have often found that people are more than willing to share and tell their story if you ask. And I think the easier you can make it on them, whether that's, I have a group, you know, we'll be there this day, this time. Can you accommodate that many? The better. The other thing is there are certain institutions that get asked so much, they start to do it on a regular basis already, right? So you may also have within even your state, a college that is just well positioned to support a cohort or a group to come in for those reasons. And then also thinking about sharing the practices, right? So I think viewing the facilities is one thing, but as you identify those best and promising practices within the state and within your network, making it a point to highlight those, right? And giving, I think, the fellows an opportunity to ask questions and to see it would be very valuable.
Great advice. Thanks. All right, we'll give you everyone a chance for one final question before we let you go for the day. Any last lingering thoughts? All right, well, I want to thank you all for joining. I know particularly on this hectic day, I see Cynthia, who runs a whole campus, and I think about you on days like today. So thank you all for joining. Thank you to our fellows and presidents for joining. And Kimberly, thank you so much for sharing all of this information. It was terrific. We will put the slides up on the MCCA website and the recording, and everyone will be able to access that in the next few days. So thank you all so much. Have a great afternoon.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, everyone. I want to thank just again everyone who was on the call, especially the presidents. I know I think I missed a couple. Dr. Pink, Dr. Selman, Dr. Kent, Dr. Sawyer, Dr. Robinson. If I missed anyone else, apologize, charge it to my head, not my heart. But I appreciate you all. I love the conversation we were able to have. Please stay in contact if you have any questions. And I look forward to seeing the transformation you all are doing at your campuses. So thank you again, Erica.
Thank you.
Good job, Kimberly. Good to see
you.
everybody.
Well, take care.
Thank you.